Yes, hello and good morning, everyone. Welcome to BizRefresh. I'm Tara Palacios, the director of BizLaunch for Arlington County. We're really excited to have you with us today on this Thursday. I have my colleagues with me, Alex Held and Lourdes Morales. They're on my left and right, but I don't know if it's really on your left or right, but they're here with us as we celebrate and come together to talk about, is your business on brand? And we're really looking forward. This is the first day of October, and this is really our pleasure to be able to come to you with a very dear and special friend who started and worked with us as the health pandemic first started and we were in lockdown. So we're really glad that she's able to join us today. And that's Carla Urona, who is with Factor 3 Digital. Carla, thank you and welcome so much for being with us again. Some of the things that we noticed as we were going through the health pandemic is really making sure that our businesses had access to tools and resources. And we call it BizRefresh because it gives you a way to really look at what you're doing and make sure that it's the freshest as possible and that you are analyzing, because this health pandemic has put us on a platform that is completely different. It's nothing that any of us have ever experienced. And for our businesses, how do we stay on brand? Is it the same brand? Is it different? Have we pivoted? Is our messaging different? And so Carla really brings together an expertise and knowledge in this space. She has vast experience in digital strategy, has worked with numerous nonprofits doing policy work, from Pew Charitable Trust to Families USA and Council for a Strong America, and then started her own business and digital strategy design firm, which is where we've worked with her these several months. And we're so grateful, Carla, for you coming to share your wisdom and your knowledge to our small business community and help us as we're looking at redoing things and making sure that our branding is where it needs to be as we move forward in the health pandemic and in future years to come. So thank you so much for being here with us today. We're all going to go behind the camera, but just some logistical information. If you do have questions, and we want this to be interactive, please raise your hand, type it in the chat notes, let us know. Lourdes, Alex, and I will be on the back end fielding questions. And without further ado, Carla, we return the platform over to you.
Thank you so much. You make me sound so smart. You could just keep talking. It's okay. Hey everybody. So thanks for attending this webinar. I hope it'll be useful to you. So I'm Carla. I'll skip what I do. I think I got a pretty flattering introduction, but we're a small business just like you, and we've had to pivot just like everybody else during the pandemic to kind of figure out what our story is and how we're advising our clients to engage online. I think one of the most important things that we've learned is essentially, that I've been telling my clients, is essentially why you're here, which is a refresh. Even before the pandemic, it was always a good time every now and then to kind of take stock and who you were and how you were sort of presenting yourself, particularly online. And I think the pandemic has shown us out of necessity that we need to do that for all kinds of reasons, like not to appear tone deaf, but also because the way we're engaging with people is different. And I think actually for small businesses in particular, the competition online is fierce, right? That competition for eyeballs is incredible because everybody is online. So really this is to help you more than anything else, basically stand out. Alex, you want to go to the next slide real quick? Alex is driving. I'm looking at my notes. All right, so this is a little bit silly. It's not a real, what you see on the screen right now is not a real business. it is the worst example of a Facebook page for a restaurant that you could ever come up with. And I put that out there because it was made up. So obviously I'm not going to call out an actual restaurant, but I'm going to pause and I want you guys to look at this for just a second, because this is obviously the worst case example, but nonetheless, a lot of us do some elements of this when we get so carried away with the work that we're doing that we forget to pause and take a look at the sum total of like what a potential customer's experience could be when they hit any of the places where we are online, right? So take a look at this page. There's like no reviews. The images, poor quality, have nothing to do with the profile. The pictures have nothing to do with what the business is about. There's zero engagement with customers, and there's absolutely no personal connection. Okay, so it's just for a second, just ask yourselves, would you visit this restaurant based off the page? Absolutely not, right? Okay, so let's take a look at the next slide, please. Okay, so how customers experience your business online and offline is a huge part of your brand. You guys all probably know that. But one of the biggest, as I mentioned, one of the biggest pitfalls, and you can see the two contrasting examples in front of you. The biggest pitfall for a business is basically engaging on social without a plan, or even before the plan, without a clear idea of how to explain what their business is about and why people should care. That's really important. So a lot of us just post things on our website and social, and when you take a step back from that, it can feel super random, and that creates a really poor impression of your business and your brand and how customers encounter you online. And the reason that that's really important is you could be an amazing business, like that fake restaurant that I just showed. Like, they could be a pupuseria, and they could be like, it could be the most delicious thing you've ever tasted, but you look at them online and you're not going to go there, and nobody's going to recommend them, right? So let's figure out, we want to avoid that a little bit. Okay, so next slide, please. So I was debating how to do this webinar. I was thinking about, well, I can just go into like brand strategy and all the marketing things, right, that people do. But I thought, actually, I'm taking a little bit of a risk, and I thought about starting with what I call, a lot of people call, I didn't invent it, the brand story. And this is why we're having the workshop today. I want you guys to start at the beginning, which is you and your story. What is the story that you should be telling about what your business is about? What is it that drives you? What are your values? Why should customers care about you? So that story, that brand story, is going to help the customers that you want to attract and the ones that you have better remember you, better connect with you. As you can see, just take a look at the example that's on the screen there. It is just it's a sushi restaurant. I think I've been to it, actually. It's pretty good. But you look at their, like if you go on their website, you'll see it's a whole story of like why they're there, the family who works there, the origin story. And you're like, okay, why, like, who's going to read their story? That brand story is a foundation of who they are. It actually influences what they talk about, what they post, how they relate to their customers. They even talk about like the work that they do in the community. So the sum total of that is the brand for that restaurant. And as you can see from just a quick example on Facebook, they have a lot of people recommending what they do. They're strongly tied to the community, and they're always sharing about how they're helping the community, and that gets them a lot of support online. So the brand story might seem to you as a small business owner like, why do I have to do this? I'm trying to sell things or my services or whatever, but it's what makes you authentic. It's what makes you trusted and credible. And beyond that touchy-feely stuff, it's actually going to help you. It'll give you ideas that will make you feel less lost when you're trying to figure out what you should post, how you should engage, right? It's your North Star. And it's also going to help you ensure that those ideas and all those things that you write and how you engage stays true to your brand instead of being random, like in those previous examples, or poorly thought out. I want to pause for a second. I was telling some of the folks at AED before we started, we're doing work with a startup space company, and they're doing some groundbreaking stuff. And, you know, I think they're going to be really famous, like well known around the world, probably in the next year or so. So the stuff they do is mind blowing. And excuse me, they're not there yet, right? They're kind of in the first stages of what they're doing, but they're getting ready to move to the next phase. And we've been working with them from the beginning. And so right now they have to hire the most brilliant engineers that they can find, as many of them as quickly as possible, to get to this next phase of their startup work, right, in the space industry. So what they're focusing on as they're trying to figure out how to recruit the best people, they were focusing on their brand story. They came to me, I didn't even suggest it, right? They're like, okay, Carla, how do we tell our story? Because that is the only way that we can rise above the competition. We don't have the best hours. Maybe we don't have the best pay. There's a lot of stuff we don't have. We're a scrappy startup. How do we tell the story of who we are so we can wildly motivate and excite and engage people to come work for us, so we can get a leg up on the competition? And we're going to look at other companies that are kind of doing similar, that they took a similar approach with their brand story. But I just wanted to share that with you to kind of put it together, that it's not just a brand story. It's not this like marketing exercise that you do. It has a real connection to your brand, and it helps you stay on brand. And we'll walk through that in a little bit. Okay, next slide, please. So I'll just go through this very quickly because I think I've already covered it. But the brand is basically the customer's impression of your experience when they encounter your business online or in person. Next slide, please. And so think of it as if you understand kind of all the facets that comprise your brand, it'll help you make, as I said earlier, better decisions about how you communicate and what you communicate online. It's almost giving you an informal plan. So it's kind of like the soul of your business, right? So what you care about, what motivates you in your business, what you offer, the quality of what you offer, and the quality of that customer experience, all those things comprise your brand. So when you're trying to figure out how to engage online, there's tactical stuff like how often should I post on Facebook? How long should my videos be in digital marketing? But the strategic stuff should, the things that you say and do on your business, about your business online, they should all cover one of these 5 components. There's more, and you could argue about how much of each, but when you're trying to figure out whether to stay on brand, if you just focus on one thing, if you just talk about like what you do or what you sell or what you offer, and you're missing all these other things, that means you're missing opportunities to connect with your customers. All right, so let's talk about the brand story next. So in order to have a good brand, you need more than a good in-person experience, right? Like that restaurant that we talked about earlier. They might have amazing food, but you wouldn't know it, right? From their website or their Facebook stuff. So a brand story is where you start. You start building up that good brand. Beyond creating that first impression, it's really, a brand story is going to help you present a compelling story and vision of you and your business. And I think the most important part is how you're helping to improve the lives of your customers. So you might be doing that through making them happier, through relaxation, through health, like you could be a health food store, through convenience, knowledge, expertise, something else. But we use brand stories because people, like, if just pause for a second and think about what, how you connect to businesses or products or things that you like. You might really love a product, but if you're a small business and you like to go to a particular restaurant, or you decide to go somewhere because you read about them online, not all the time, but a lot of the time, you relate better to the person behind that business or the people that are working in that business as much as to, like, you know, what that business sells. And so this is not like a secret. If you look at what like really well-known companies do, they always start with a brand story. And the reason is because it just basically, people connect to people, not businesses. And when you make a really good connection, it helps customers remember you in a positive way. So again, the digital ecosystem right now is super, super crowded. And a lot of this is about how can you break free from what you were doing before? How can you breathe some life into what you're doing now? How can you make it more interesting and less onerous for you so it doesn't feel like a chore? Oh, I've got to put stuff on Facebook twice a day, right? And how do you make it more meaningful and authentic? Doing all those things will help customers remember you in a more positive way. Okay, so next slide, please. This is not English class. This is not high school English class, but a lot of people have a really hard time telling their story, and a lot of businesses have a really hard time telling their story. I know because I work with businesses, and I'll say, tell me your brand story, and I'll give kind of like an abbreviated version of this training to them or a workshop, whatever. And usually what I get back is like, if I don't go into it in detail, I get back like what I do. Like I sell, I offer, my products are, and I'm like, why did you do this? Why did you start your business? And a lot of people really struggle with that. We're going to look at examples of well-known companies that are doing this really, really well. And you're going to see this exact formula kind of in how they apply it. But let me just walk you through it really quickly. So it's called a story arc, but you can call it something else. Think of your brand story as like, I don't know, it could be a fairy tale, it could be a comic book or a novel, whatever it is, but it's got a bunch of different components to it. And it starts with, every story generally needs a hero, right? A protagonist. It needs some tension or some conflict or some challenge. That's what sustains your interest, right? How did you do that? Now what happened, right? And then it needs some kind of a good ending. Sometimes there's a moral. And brand stories, believe it or not, they follow that formula. So at the very beginning, there's a protagonist, that's you're the hero. Then there's the quest, which is whatever problem or challenge needs to be solved. And then there's the journey that you take to overcome that challenge or that adversity and achieve your goal. And the goal, is in this instance, how you started your business. Next slide, please. Okay, there we go. Cool. So again, this is kind of what I was talking about earlier. It's not the what, it's the why. So almost every business starts with a what. This is what I do. But remember, the whole point of a brand story and the whole point of your brand and the whole point of the posts and the things that you put on your website, as you're agonizing, do I start a blog? Do I not start a blog? What do I write on my blog? Your North Star should be the why. How do I get people to connect to me, trust me, believe in me, and then become evangelists for me, right? Tell people how amazing my business is and my employees and what I do, and then share online. So to do that, you have to start with why you do what you do, right? In your brand story. What problem, what change did you see in people's lives, or what was out there that you felt you needed to solve through your business? Like only you could do it in this way. And then what was your own personal motivation to doing that? You had to have done it for some reason. I'll share the Factor 3 brand story so you can learn a little bit about me and some other folks too. But this is where you establish that first connection with your customer. It's where you draw them into your story and you get them to see you as a person. We're not talking about paragraphs and paragraphs. This is not an essay, but it's where you start that initial connection. Okay, so let's go to the next slide, please. So we talk a little bit about who you are and sort of that challenge, right? I see this problem in the world. I'm going to start a company to do something about that, right? And again, later we'll talk about some actual companies. Okay, but then there's your path, right? Like the journey that you're going to take to starting your business or solving that problem. The products you're going to think about, or the services, or why you do things the way you do. It's all because you're taking this journey to that end, right? And it's not easy. It's hard to start a business. It's hard to maintain it. It's hard to recruit people. It's hard to engage with people. There's so many things that are difficult, but it's hard just to get started. And I think everybody has some kind of a challenge or an obstacle, or a lot of wrong turns maybe, or a lot of decisions to make. But I think talking about the challenges that you face in starting the business, if I'm from Bolivia, but like you're an immigrant and maybe you had a hard time, getting credit, or you had a hard time, learning the language, whatever it is, those challenges show who you are. And I do think that they're important to put in the story if you have them, because it just makes people trust you. It makes you maybe a little bit more vulnerable, but it also talks a little bit about your work ethic and your character and your creativity, because you are bringing those things to bear on your business today. So if I'm like a really compassionate, kind, creative person, right, and I use those things to kind of start factor 3, well, it's a big shocker if I'm not applying those things to factor 3. And it's a big shocker if you hire us that you don't see those things, right? So again, talking about the obstacles and the challenges and how you kind of overcame those as part of your brand story and starting your business, those are really important things to share. Okay, so some other things to talk about. I don't know, you're going to hear me talk about values over and over. Values don't equate to politics, and you have to be careful about like values. I know in last week's workshop, you learned a lot about understanding your audiences and things like that. So and targeting to them. So like later on, probably in next week's workshops, when I talk about digital marketing, we'll talk about how to use values and things to create actual content, right? That kind of fits your particular audiences. But for now, I think, everybody wants to know who people really are, and this is about establishing trust and credibility. So really talking about what you believe in, and what you care about. That obviously affects like everything from whatever charitable work or volunteer work you do in the community to helping customers understand that you carry these values in your business. And because a brand story is not trying to sell people things, it's talking about kind of who you are. I think values are a really wonderful and authentic and genuine way to really get people to understand that they should trust you without you saying trust me, or sort of selling yourself too much. But you want to be seen as a business that's doing more than just looking for customers, basically. All right, so let's talk about vision. So finally, kind of at the end of your quest, there's you, right? The change that you're making in the world, as a small business owner, as a member of your community. And your vision it's almost like your belief system, because nobody has a small business in isolation. We're all connected to one another. And I think especially during COVID-19, people feel isolated, they feel stressed, they feel marginalized, they feel invisible in many ways. We can't see each other in person the way we used to, and we're all looking for more connection, I think, than we were before. So this vision is a way to kind of wrap this up. And you can look at the statement that I put online. It's not anything you need to fill out, but it's kind of, I believe that sort of this group of people deserve whatever it is that I provide to help them, kind of make their lives better in a particular way. And that's why I work so hard to serve sushi, be a good designer, right? So this is kind of how you want to change the world as it relates to your restaurant and your values. So that's kind of sort of wrapping things up. Okay, next slide, please. So, and then at the very, very end, there's kind of your impact. It's like it's like the punctuation at the end of a sentence. It's the so what. So you got your business, you talked about who you are now and what you care about. So now end it and make sure that people understand what you do as a small business owner, how that connects to your community, as an individual, like kind of what you're doing, how you're giving back, how's your business helping. I think it takes you out of your business and brings everything back to the community. You can take all these, I think previous 5 slides, and you can actually create, believe it or not, and I'll talk about how to do this at the next workshop. You can create social media content and marketing out of all these things that we just talked about. So like I said, it's not just sort of this exercise, this touchy-feely exercise. This is your roadmap for who you are, what your story is, and then kind of how to tell your story in different ways depending on who your audience is. So I want to keep bringing you back to that so that you can see that there's like a real reason to be doing this beyond just for the sake of doing it. So in a couple minutes, we're going to have like volunteers. Hopefully we'll have volunteers and I'll walk you through some of these. But first, let me show you some real, like some actual companies and show you how they do their brand story. Okay, next slide, please, Alex. All right, so we're going to look at 3 examples that tell a good brand story. You're going to see that they all share, for the most part, not like literally, but like some of the common elements that we discussed. There's a why did I start my business? What happened to me, right? That showed me that like there was a problem. And then like the how, sort of like how I did it, how I started my business and how it solves that problem that I saw in the beginning. And then my values, not necessarily in this order, but like what do I believe in? And then how are the things that I care about, right, as a person, how do they drive the work that I'm doing today? How do they drive what you're experiencing or what you will experience if you're not my customer yet? My business, my normal business, yes, but also how I'm connected to my community, how I give back, how you'll experience all of that. So this is Tom's shoes. I have a bunch of these shoes. I love them. But just take a second and we can look at Tom's story. But it's basically like on the right, I kind of explained in a nutshell what the founder was about and what he did. He started a shoe company that donates 1 pair of shoes for every pair sold. He was in Argentina, and he saw a bunch of kids that didn't have shoes, and that really moved him, right? And he didn't know what to do about it, so he started a shoe company. And now, for every shoe that he sells, he donates a pair, and that's a huge part of his. That's a huge part of his business model, and he does amazingly well. If you look at his social media at the company's social media profile, you'll see that almost I think I counted like every 4th or 5th post, they're always injecting their values, and I think I have some examples of that later on. So the other part of it is notice how we are very quickly able to synthesize what that company does into like 10 words or less. Sell a pair so we can donate a pair, right? So that's also important. You can have a great brand story, but the purpose of the brand story is eventually for you to be able to hone in very quickly and explain who you are and what you do in a very short amount of time, because not every customer is gonna, read, your website ad nauseum or whatever. So that's Tom's. Let's take a look at another example. I think my glasses are from Warby Parker, actually. So basically, the founder realized he was a grad student, and as you know, grad students don't have money. At least most grad students don't have money. Anyway, I think he was like on a backpacking trip. He lost his glasses, and he couldn't afford to buy a new pair. And he realized, hey, glasses are too expensive, and everybody needs glasses. So guess what? I'm going to disrupt eyeglasses or eyewear, and I'm going to make affordable glasses. So it's not like, he's not even like, this is the thing about work, like they sell glasses. Like, I don't think they're saving lives. They're not changing the world in, the way like whatever, a large philanthropic organization is, but he has a story. He broke his glasses. He couldn't afford to pay for them. And he realized, hey, people need glasses, so I'm going to make them more affordable. So as you think about your own story, when I was preparing for this webinar, I kind of informally interviewed a couple people that I know, and I tried to get them to tell me their story of like why they started their businesses. And a lot of people come at it with a lot of humility, like, oh, I don't know, I don't have a story. Why would anybody care about what I did? And that's kind of why I like the Warby Parker example. It's just glasses. But it has a compelling story, and it humanizes the act of going and buying glasses. And you'll kind of see, I think, in what they do, like on social media, how they make sure you don't forget that they care about, glasses being accessible and affordable. By the way, they also donate. So let's look at the final example, and that's me. So my story is a little bit different. I don't sell things. I guess I sell a service, but basically for me, I worked at a lot of nonprofits, and I was running their digital stuff, and we would hire vendors to come and do like fancy stuff for us, right? Like build us websites and launch big campaigns and all that. And I was so disappointed a lot of the times that often I didn't understand what the vendors were doing and what the value of the service was that I was getting. I felt like it was all kind of behind this curtain, and I was just getting marketing and presentations thrown at me. And I just, we all felt kind of intimidated by the process. And I thought, I wish somebody would just come in and just tell us what they're doing in a way that we can understand, so we can see the value of what they're doing for us, not just like the end result. And I realized that nonprofits, just especially the ones that don't have a lot of money, it's very intimidating for them to hire people to help them with their digital stuff, even if it's just like design and videos and whatever, but also like the marketing side of it and social media and all that. So I was like, we should start a company that, in addition to like doing the work, actually coaches and mentors the clients that we serve, so that they know how to do it themselves if that's what they want. And if they don't want to do it themselves, they at least understand it. So at the end of the process, they're smarter than they were in the beginning, and they don't feel intimidated by it anymore. So like if they go hire somebody else, they feel like, oh, we know what to hire for. So that's kind of our story. All right, next slide. So I guess this is where it gets fun, or awkwardly silent. Next slide, please. I was wondering if I could get a volunteer from the audience, and we're not going to like necessarily, write an entire story together, but I would love it if I could get somebody that I could interview a little bit, and I would just use these questions that are here, and then maybe we could kind of hear how you would answer those questions, and it would be sort of the beginnings of your brand story. And if you already have a brand story and you can tell it in a couple of minutes, I think that would be interesting as well. And if you have questions, definitely jump in. So let's pause and see if anybody wants to raise their hands. And I'm not looking at chat, so I can do that if I have to do that.
Yeah, folks, feel free to raise your hand. Oh, Mary, I think we got your hand up. Let me just take you off mute real quick, like. Okay, Mary, you should be getting an unmute request. Yes, hi, Mary. Can you hear us? Mary, I think we're having some issues hearing you. Okay. I also have Vera who raised her hand. Vera, I'm going to take you off mute real quick too. Okay. Vera, can you hear us? Yes. Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay, great.
Hey, Vera.
Yes, I did raise my hand. I love to do this exercise with you. I think that I'd be able to provide some insights.
Awesome. Okay, so let's get started. Vera, can you tell me a little bit about what you do? Like, what you have a small business? I'll start there.
Okay, so yes, I do have a small business, and the problem that I wanted to change and solve was bringing inner city youth the ability to learn technical skills that the education system wasn't necessarily feeding into the population.
And then tell me a little bit about, like, do you have a website set up? Do you have social media up yet, or are you just getting started?
So to be honest, I started this business 15 years ago. And
Yeah.
because of COVID, I ran it for 15 years. I actually partnered with my church for their after school program. It was an outreach project
Mm-hmm.
that I went to help them understand the needs and the skill sets that kids weren't really getting in school, right? So
Mm-hmm.
yes, I did have a website. Yes, I did market that. Since COVID and the first of the year, things have definitely fallen off. Haven't been able to do that and continue with that process. But I can definitely share what the 15 years taught in terms of metrics and in terms of success stories, target market, all of those kind of things.
And what problem are you facing right now when it comes to, let's call it sort of marketing? This isn't even brand story stuff, but like kind of marketing your business. I know a lot of us have noticed things, have fallen off since COVID. But what's the big problem? Like, why did you raise your hand? What's the problem
So the big
that you want to tackle? Yeah.
So the problem that has created the disconnect during COVID is that the kids aren't in school on a full-time basis, which means that you're not able to deliver the service that you want, because the kids were then coming to this after-school program after school, right? So they were in the sessions from, say, a 3 to 6 o'clock time period, right? Which we don't have that regulated time anymore. Some of them may be in school, some of them may not be in school because of the economic factors, whatever. So that impacted our ability to actually keep the classes running. And also the funding. Most of these after school
Mm-hmm.
programs are supplemented by any number of programs. So.
And how are you trying to, is your problem that you're trying to figure out like how to engage those students online now since they can't come in person? Like I'm on the board of a in DC. It's an early child care center. They had to shut down during COVID. They're starting to open up a little bit more, and there's always a question of how do I let people know my doors are open. But I think in your case, are you trying to figure out like how can you pivot your business from doing the in-person stuff to engaging kids online?
Yes, exactly. So one of the
Got it.
critical challenges is we had a facility where the kids came physically to every day after school, and there was a program set up. They had their computers and all of their equipment was in the facility. So you have children who don't have these means at home,
Right.
right? So they're unable now to participate in us to deliver that service to them outside of the facility.
I gotcha. Yeah, and I think, and were those students, parents or the students themselves, were they engaging with you online before? Like, were you having some
No, it was
sharing?
all
Okay,
it was all pretty much
got it.
because we're talking inner city students who may not have a stable home life, a lot of other challenges, learning
Connectivity.
challenges, physical, all of
Yeah.
those types of things, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Access,
yeah.
internet access, all of that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think like this is less about your story. It is about your story a little bit, so I want to talk a little bit about that. But I do think that like what I would say to you, and you should, I'm happy to walk you through this pro bono. So you can get my contact information, what's on there. You can contact me later. We can talk offline. I'd be happy to talk to you for like a half hour or so. But I think like, I don't know that the brand story, the story that you're trying to tell for sure, I do think whatever presence you have on your website, you do need to change that and acknowledge that like COVID has changed the way that we're serving our clients, right? We used to do this, and today we're doing this. But I do think first and I don't have an answer for you. I mean, I've had a lot of my clients go and look at what other people were doing, and I'm going to talk a lot about that next week about what are other people in a similar situation that I'm in. How are they engaging with people online? So for example, I know like this is not remotely related to what you're talking about, but a lot of personal trainers, right? Or like anytime, whatever, franchise owners, whatever, they were like, what do I do with my clients? You know, I can't see them anymore. And so, as you probably know, they went to Zoom. So I'm sure that there might be some ways for you to kind of build some of those services and reach some of the population that you were thinking about digitally, or maybe you could physically go to a space and you know, that they could sort of watch you remotely. I'm not really sure what to tell you in terms of how you could connect with them. I'd have to learn more about your business. I think when it comes to the digital divide and all the inequalities that exist, I think that's a whole nother level. And I think like with the organization that I'm on the board of, you know, we're not resigned to the fact, but we just know that a certain segment of the kids that we serve are going to be harder to reach during this time. So, you know, we're doubling down on working with the families and providing more resources online and doing so much coaching on how to engage people online. And you hear about that with like the virtual education experience, the very uneven experience that kids are having in school, right? A lot of times you have to teach the parents how to engage online, how online works, because they may be busy. They might just have their cell phones instead of like a fancy laptop. So I think it's hard for me to give you some specific feedback, but what I would say is it's, you know, when you do figure out what are maybe the more limited services that you can offer online, and it could be through Zoom or just sort of one-on-one remotely through your computer. I would recommend you take another look at your website. I'll have to look at it. Like I said, reach out to me and I'll take a look at it too. And you really want to tell that story. So not so much your brand story, that's important. I hope you have this on your site now, but you really want to tell the story of how you have pivoted and how what you're doing now, maybe it's more limited, maybe it's different, it's scaled back, but it is responding to COVID-19 and it is responding to the new circumstances that your kids are in. And then you should also be doing that on Facebook or Twitter, like whatever, or Instagram, whatever your profile or your social media profiles are, you should be there as well, kind of telling that story. Does that help you? Because I don't know that I'm able to get as specific as I would like. And I don't think it quite relates to the brand story, but I hear you.
So that's the new challenge. The overall challenge of the business is how do we compete with the larger consulting firms out there, right? Because I started the business to definitely teach inner city kids how to HTML, web design, how to code, actually do code, not application. Teach them Microsoft techniques like Excel and Word, and using Excel. A lot of young kids, the youth now, like their sports. How do you take your favorite player or whoever that person is and calculate their statistics, right? That's a very, you know what I mean? So how do you get them, or how do you sell that to a larger audience when it's such an individual goal? You know what I mean? The goal is
that part's easy. So you just answered almost you can now answer almost every single question here. So I think if we put aside kind of the first part of your question and focus on how do I stand out against all these big organizations? So number one, you're talking about inner city kids, right? So I'm going to be I don't mean to offend anybody, but I'm just going to be really candid. I mean, I'm Hispanic, right? If a lot of these are larger organizations, consultancies, whatever, if they're run by people in a demographic that doesn't share the life story of who you're trying to serve, I think explaining who you are, I'm not saying you do, but in whatever way your own story or that of your family, that of your background, whatever, can kind of mirror the story of some of your kids, explain that up front. Like I always talk about, I'm an immigrant from Bolivia, right? And sometimes when I work with some nonprofits, you know, they're almost embarrassed. They're like, we don't know this, we don't know that, and you know, we have a large percentage of our population, they don't speak, you know, the language here very well. And I'm like, hey, it's okay. This is why I can help you better than anybody else, because I get that. I learned English when I was 7. I still mangle idioms or whatever, right? So start with who you are. Start with why you did this, because a large consultancy, when they talk about, if they even talk about why they're in this, it's not going to be the personal story and the journey that you took. They're not going to be able to say who they are in a way that's as authentic as the way that you are, right? And so I think the why did you start your business, and kind of those core values, the change that you were trying to achieve, if you make it really personal. So for example, I used to live in DC, like a couple of blocks from Midtown Youth Academy, where I learned to box. It was an aftercare gym also for inner city kids. So I saw it every day. Like I saw every single kid that went through those doors to learn how to use computers and learn how to box. There's absolutely no way that a larger consultancy could match my story and my personal experience, right? I just have to tell it. So I think explaining sort of boots on the ground, like you're there to whatever degree you have that shared experience or have witnessed that shared experience, is something nobody else can do but you. And that you're on sort of the planet right now, and you're watching this unfold, and you know these kids better than these bigger organizations do. You're closer to them, maybe. I don't know if there are parts of your life experience that at least match what they're going through a little bit, or make you a more empathetic observer and a more authentic participant in the solution, right, to what they're facing. I bet you do. And so I think that if you, and again, I'm happy to volunteer to work with you on this. If you tell your story, your connection to these kids, the problem that you saw, and why who you are in the world and the experiences that you've had in your life, right, that you've witnessed, make you uniquely qualified to actually understand what these kids are going through. And so the second part is, how do those like values play out on your business? Well, you just said, right, you relate to the kids better. You probably understand that they don't have access to like the best computers in the world. You know, maybe for some kids, they might be like really, really motivated to talk about sports, because that's their connection to the world, right? So you know how to use those connections to connect them to technology and to the other skills that they're going to need as they go into whatever, high school, maybe college, or you know, something else and beyond. So I do think that the more you make this about you, what you see, what you experienced, how that connects to what they're experiencing right now, and as important, how that influences how what you're providing them is way, way, way different and more authentic and more real and more believable to those kids than sort of an out of the box bigger firm where you click and you've got all these like 20 pictures on the who we are page, right? It's just going to be a different vibe. Does that help?
Yes, it does, without a doubt, right? Making it more personal, shifting from just talking about the demographics and what we've learned over the years to actually talking about what we're still trying to achieve.
And why? It's why? Because again, a lot of people focus on the what
Right.
I do, how I, it's the I'm and you know this, right? Because I bet when you go and you look at companies or organizations or nonprofits or whatever, like some things pull you in, right? And some things are, oh, that's nice. And so I think, we were saying this before the webinar started. We were like, I said this, I was like, oh man, the problem as small business owners is we don't have all the resources of these bigger companies. So what do we do? What's the one place we can win? We can be better at being ourselves. and telling about who we are and connecting to people directly in a more personal way. We can always win at that. And I think that's, you know, hopefully that helps you.
No, it does. Thank you. I
Definitely
like
reach
that
out to
line.
me.
You can repeat that line for me again. I like that. We can be better, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We can be better by being ourselves or something like that. I'll have to figure out something pithy.
Good one. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
No,
You
thank
bet.
you for sharing, Vera.
So any reactions, you guys? Any other questions kind of to this part? Like, I think a brand story is actually kind of hard if you overthink it. I think it's kind of easy if you make it about you. But does anybody else have any other, you know, kind of experiences they want to share, or curious if they want to kind of go through their story?
Feel free to raise your hand, folks, if you do. Oh, Mary, my apologies. Let's try you again. Let's see. Mike. Okay. Okay, Mary, you're off mute. Can you hear us? Okay. I'm not sure. I think we're having some technical difficulties here, Carla, but oh, one question from Los Tios did come through. How long or how short should your story be? Carla?
So I think don't assume that people are going to read every word. They won't. I think it almost matters more that you have it. So you're going to use your story, and we'll talk about kind of where to use it in a little bit. Most people will put it on their website, like kind of in the About Us. So there's an external reason for that story, right? You should go and look at the businesses that you frequent and see how much, just for fun, see how many of them have that in their About Us or Our Story or whatever. Some do, some don't. You're probably not going to read the whole thing. What's really important though is, especially in the beginning, so remember the beginning is the why and the who you are. That is their connection. Like if you were meeting that person for the first time and you're like, tell me a little bit about yourself, they might say, I run a small digital agency in Arlington. Or they might say, hey, I'm an immigrant from Bolivia. I don't know how people are going to start, right? But I guarantee it, if you start with the story of kind of who you are, and they already know that they're on your business, right? They're on your website, so they know what you do, whatever that is. I think just making sure that in the very beginning, you kind of explain the who and the why. Even if your story, it could be long, it could be short, it could be, I mean, I think I told my story in about 3 or 4 paragraphs. You know, maybe that's the length. I think however long it takes for you to tell it, you should tell it. But just don't assume that everybody's going to read everything. So make the beginning really count. So if I just read that first paragraph, what do I get from you, right? Do you share my values? Maybe we come from the same country or the same background, or I don't know, just whatever it is about you that's unique. I think that should come through, and then people will make a connection between that and your business. So I wouldn't worry about the length. And then just very quickly, the other purpose to your brand story is you're going to use it. It'll be internal. You're going to use that story as like your compass for for how you write stuff online and the tone and what you post and all those things. And we'll go into that a little bit later, and we'll go into that a lot more next week. So I would say just make sure and that's why I kind of left these examples up there. You can kind of emulate that, and I wouldn't worry about length too much. But obviously if it's too long, it might get kind of boring unless you have an amazing story.
Thank you.
Do we have, are we able to talk to Mary, or?
Well, I think we might be. And Mary, I apologize. It seems like we're having technical.
That's okay.
But she did write through, she did write in, so I'll read this. She said, I wanted to share that I've heard that your brand is what people say about you when you've left the room. Or you thought,
Yes,
I thought that was really, it's that almost that virtual chatter.
absolutely. Yeah, it is absolutely that impression, that takeaway. And we'll also talk a little bit about how important you nailed it, the word say, in this age of social media and in this age of COVID-19. What's really interesting about say is like your customers are your evangelists, right? They're the ones that matter, right? If they're talking about you online, hopefully in a good way, that is huge. And if they think they have the wrong impression of you, then that's what's going to go out into the world, right? And so understanding your story, understanding who you are, what makes you you, how you're changing the world, making your customers' lives better through whatever. You could be a hardware store, right? Whatever it is, that is so important that you know what you're about, and that's the value of kind of this path. Because otherwise, if you don't have that that center, that core, it'll be apparent. It'll be apparent in your Facebook or your Insta or your website. It'll feel more like a mishmash. And so just pausing, who am I? How do I want to tell the story of what I do? Will not guarantee, we'll make sure that your customers, after you leave the room, that what they say when you find it, you're like, yeah, that's me. I'm so glad they got that. And we'll go over some examples in just a little bit. So next slide, please.
Well, before we move on, Carla, can I?
Oh yeah.
Her hand up, and I just wanted to make sure I didn't miss her. And Chelsea, forgive me if I did miss
you. Sure.
Feel free to raise your hand again if you wanted to say something. Oh, okay, just a second, Chelsea. Let me take up you.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Carla. Hi, thank you, Alex, for letting me speak for a little bit. So my name is Chelsea. I'm the owner of Lamu Creamery in North Arlington. We have a little storefront in Lee Harrison Plaza. The brand story, what you had talked about, really makes sense, and I think it's really important to us, and that is what we have been struggling with. We've been in business for 3 years. I am a Chinese immigrant, and I think because I grew up in China and the culture had instilled me to be modest and you know, don't talk too much about yourself, kind of that mindset. I personally don't like to tell my story. That's why I have been having a hard time putting the brand story together. But just kind of give you an idea of why we started this business. So me and my husband, we have 3 children, and about 5 years ago, we were looking for a better and healthier version of ice cream for our kids, and we weren't able to find anything on the market that doesn't have additives, stabilizers, and all of that in the ice cream. So we decided to start this ice cream store that makes ice cream fresh, and all of the ice cream base that we make are in store daily. So we guarantee that there's no additives, preservatives, and stabilizers. Me personally, I used to work at a hospital as a technical trainer, and I see firsthand how our patients suffer daily in life. So I kind of want to deliver kind of happiness to a mass population, including children, and adults, and that's kind of what we envision the store to be, a happy place where the families can gather and enjoy. But I have no idea how I can put it together to make it connectable for, I guess, my customers and, you know, and viewers.
Just did. So that was an amazing story. And by the way, I have to tell you, and by the way, you guys, we did not like prearrange this ahead of time. My son is like your biggest fan, because he loves your, I remember actually when you guys opened up and I was like, oh, you know, whatever. It's just another ice cream place. And then we went in and it was like really friendly and really welcoming, and you know, had a nice vibe to it. And the ice cream really is absolutely delicious. So I'm going to tell my son, he's 11. I'm going to tell him that that I spoke to you today, and he's going to think I'm so cool. So I just have to let you know. So what you just did is your brand story. Like if I could hit record, which this is being recorded, that's awesome, and basically transcribe everything you just said and put it on your website if it isn't there already. That's your story. This is about who you are, right? So this goes back to, like, I don't know if you went, Chelsea, if you went to the to last week's workshop about like knowing your audience and targeting and stuff. So I'm going to skip the, you know, the thing about last week. But my point is honing in on your audience and the understanding kind of who they are and what they care about, and then the vibe, the impression you want to make, the environment you want to create with whatever it is that you deliver to them, which in your case is not just ice cream, but it is healthier ice cream, right? And it is happiness. So those three, you want to deliver ice cream and health and happiness to families and people and children, right? So I think that is exactly what you just said in your story. And then you already connected. You're like, you know, you started this with your husband, you have a family, you have 3 kids. Your personal story was you looked at all the ice cream that's out there and it's like not that good for you, and you have kids and you want them to have the best, and so you're creating that best experience for your kids, and you're also creating it for families in Arlington. And I know that everybody I know is wild about your ice cream, so I hope you know that too. So there's you're not bragging. What's nice about telling your story is you're not saying that you're an amazing person. You're not saying I make the best ice cream in the world. This is what most of us are, humble, and we don't like to brag about ourselves or talk about ourselves too much. But I think when we talk about the service that we bring to our communities, we do feel a little bit more comfortable about that, right? And when we talk about who we are as people and the things we care about, that's different than like marketing with a capital M. So I really think that you have a compelling story, and I think you're absolutely right to start with who you are and do a really good job of explaining how that, you being a mom and having 3 kids, and is in direct connection to your target audience, right? Which is the local North Arlington families who are also concerned, you know, about where we as parents, we all struggle with making sure the things that our kids are stuffing in their mouths are nutritious, and also kind of working in the healthcare field. You probably, as you said, you know, you've kind of seen the effects of not great nutrition, or maybe not putting good things into your body, what that does. So I think that would make a compelling story. It does make a compelling story. And then I'll show you in a little bit, like how you, and again, definitely next week, how you can take chunks of what you just told me, Chelsea, and you can start to inject into your social media post. So create your story, put it on your website, have some photos, etc. And then you can take elements from what you care about. Like I care about nutrition. I think kids should eat ice cream that is not like totally bad for them. And you can start to inject those are your values, right? Which you just explained to me. You can start to inject that into your social media posts. So when somebody sees a Facebook post of you guys and like a happy family, like eating an ice cream cone, you don't have to just say like, this is a kid eating our strawberry, whatever. You can say, hey, you know, because we care about nutrition, this awesome strawberry thing, you know, is free of additives, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And like Johnny really loves it, or whatever, right? So you are injecting what you care about into how you share about what is going on with your business online, and then you can also get your customers to share that as well for you on your behalf, again, to kind of be evangelists. Does that help?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. I missed last week's session, but I think I got the email with the recording link on there. I'll definitely review that. I'll definitely be attending next week's session too. I think at this point, because of COVID-19, we definitely see some dramatic downfall in the sales. So we weren't too focused on our social media marketing previously, but I'm picking it up and gradually adding more contents to it. And I'll definitely very interested in listening what you're gonna offer next week for that.
And to give you a little bit of preview of next week, and I talked about this, I think in the earlier presentation I gave at the beginning of the epidemic, which seems like a million years ago. To your point, Chelsea, about having things drop off, I think that if you are doing things differently during the pandemic, so we know that people are not going to businesses in person the way that they used to because they don't feel as safe, right? So for example, not you, but if you're a business and you don't care if people wear masks in your store, as you probably know, I guarantee you, people on, let's pick on Facebook for a second, people on all these Facebook groups are going to be sorry, there's someone at my door. People on all these Facebook groups are going to be posting, hey, don't go to this business. Did you know that they don't have a mask policy, or people are not wearing masks? They're not going to feel safe. But you can do the opposite. So you can show stories, pictures of how safe it is for people to visit your business. You can have a little video or a little post of like, hey gang, it's, here's Chelsea at 7:30. I'm just wiping down the counters and making sure the tape for social distancing is on the floor, or I'm opening up a new bag of face masks or face shields for my employees, like, whatever it is. You can kind of use how you are making your store safe for your customers. You can be sharing that a lot actually on Facebook to kind of inspire a little bit of trust and remind people that it's safe to visit. And you can also ask your customers, and this is the hardest part, but you can just, if you see regulars come in, time and time again, you can remind them, hey, could you tag us on Facebook? Like, we'd really like to get more people. I don't know if you go to any of the local, like Arlington, whatever, Neighbors Helping Neighbors, or there's different groups like on Facebook and on other platforms as well. But people are very quick to share stories about local businesses that are family run, operated, whatever, and they need help. So I've seen a couple of those things not go viral necessarily, but they generate a lot of comments and they work. So use your regulars to help you get help and tell your story and say, this is the best ice cream place in North Arlington. I felt totally safe when I went there. I waited outside, I called in my order, I didn't have to wait too long, whatever it was great. And they would really like more people to come visit. So I know I'm taking a long time, but I just cannot emphasize enough. And Mary, Chelsea, you can also take a look at what other kind of successful local restaurants are doing and kind of emulate them, and you'll see that they're doing similar things as well. So that was a bit of a tangent, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
No, this is great. Thanks for the interaction. Makes it a lot more enjoyable for the program. So Mary, you had a question. I'll get to you towards the end, but I kind of want to, I think you want to go to the next slide, Carla?
Yeah, let's do that. And I'm not going to spend too much time on this because I know we're, the whole point of this was to be interactive. So this is just more kind of the tail end of that. So back to the brand story, you created it, it's good, it's solid. Think of it as like there's different the components that you can pull out of it now, right? So you're going to want a shorter message. I think somebody asked, how long should my brand story be? As long as it needs to be, but then how are you going to use it? And so you've crafted your story. You can pull out some of these elements into sort of chunks that you can use later, right? From your website to your blog, Facebook page. But essentially that's how you use your brand story. So here's examples, I guess, of how to create shorter messages from that story. You have to be able to tell it succinctly, right? So that's your brand's message. You have your brand story. What is the element from that comes out? That's your message. So as an exercise, and you don't have to do that here, but try to kind of answer these questions in 20 words or less to make it super simple and easy to understand. That's helpful because if you're explaining to a prospective customer or client what you do, it's harder than it looks. So you can read a little bit about I just use Bolivia because I'm from Bolivia and I love food. This is hypothetical, right? This assumes that I just started up a family-run Bolivian restaurant, and I know there's many good ones here in Arlington, thank God. But so Chelsea, this is almost a little bit like what you talked about, right? Except it's obviously different ethnicity. But so we founded a Bolivian restaurant to serve delicious, healthy, affordable food to give the Bolivian community a home away from home. I could have said it. I have a Bolivian restaurant and we sell delicious empanadas and salteñas, but that's not my story. That's what I do. All right, so your vision, and you could see these things being on your website, like on the home page. So again, not everybody's going to read your brand story, but you can take these elements, some of these elements, and put them front and center on your website, on your Facebook page, like about this business, right? You can say like, I'm a Bolivian restaurant, I sell empanadas and salteñas, or you can say, you can use some of these elements, which makes it more compelling. And again, later I'll show how they're like a compass. So vision, I believe that all families deserve the chance to take a break, enjoy a good, healthy meal without breaking their budget every time, right? You shouldn't be rich. You shouldn't have to be rich to have good quality food and a family experience. Okay, and what I do. So when somebody, it's like what I believe in, what I offer customers, and what that customer experience is, right? So I create a family experience in my restaurant for everyone who walks through the door. That means when they come in and they've got kids, I pick up the babies. Well, not during COVID. I wave at the babies. I used to pick up the babies. I would hug them. I'd kiss them. The kids always felt great. When they were in my restaurant, I wasn't like, shh, it just felt like a family restaurant. We've all been to restaurants like that, right? So this hypothetical restaurant owner that doesn't exist, you could see how the values, what they believe in, are folded into what they do, and that's folded into what they provide. And that is the brand that they get. So we were talking about like, what's a customer going to say the minute you walk out of the room, or they leave your restaurant or your nail salon or your gym or whatever, right? So they might be like, yeah, that's a great place for families. And then what are they going to post on Facebook about you? Boy, if you've got little kids, go to this Bolivian restaurant. It is awesome. And the owner really loves kids. So you're not going to have to stress out about kids. That's what the customer is going to say about you. And you can hire a big marketing firm to come up with all these like fancy strategies for how to accomplish this. Or you can do this yourself by thinking about copying basically what is here and, kind of applying it for your business. Okay, so next slide, please. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about how to use your brand story and its elements. I'm going to give you a couple more examples. We're going to go over this a lot more next week, so I'm just kind of teasing out next week a little bit. So next slide, please. So we showed this restaurant. I showed this restaurant like at the very beginning. So this is a sushi place. Like I said, I'm pretty sure I've been to it. It was good. But anyway, there's a personal story right here, so you can just kind of check it out. When you visit the restaurant's website, it makes you feel like there's real people behind that restaurant, right? Like there's people you can trust. I don't even know if that's a professional shot bit of photography, but it definitely feels like, oh, I would want to come here. Like, this is very welcoming to me. So the brand story really should be a core part of your website, and it does inspire trust more than anything. That's the whole point of the brand story from an external perspective. Okay, next slide, please. So then there's like the value part. I know I talk about this ad nauseum. It's not, I know we're not all saving the world, but we are in our small way. Like Chelsea is giving people a little bit of happiness and relaxation and giving them ice cream. They can eat healthy ice cream without stressing out that it's like completely bad for their kids. And it's a little break from real life, right? So all of us are a little bit like Chelsea, right? We all do a little bit of that. And so not only that, but then there's also how we give back to the community. So on that same restaurant site, you can see how they're talking about, they just have like a small fundraiser. It wasn't huge, but they're doing it. They're showing it on their website. So you can see how they're connected to their community. So just from doing that, I don't think they posted 8 million posts on Facebook about it, but they did put it on their website. And so one of their regulars was inspired to recommend the restaurant on Facebook, as you can see from the post on the right. And that's great publicity, and it's also recognition of what the restaurant values and their good work in the community. So they're not spending hundreds of dollars on online marketing every single week, but they are being public about what they do and how they're giving back to the community in a maybe a modest way. And I think today, during COVID, as I said, we're all struggling to connect with other people, and to be honest, we like to share things that make us feel good, and it makes us feel good to see restaurants doing good, and it makes us feel really good to say, hey, support this restaurant, support this small business, support the struggling but amazing business, help them out. It makes us feel good. Your job as a business owner is to make me aware of that. You have to reach me and tell me a little bit about your story and inspire me to share that experience, as the screenshot on the right shows that this customer was inspired to do. Okay, next slide, please. Here's another example. So different restaurant. I'm sorry, I'm just talking about restaurants. Again, maybe I'm hungry. So this restaurant owner basically, as you can see from the post, told a customer how he drove all this way, I think like to Philly, to get some outdoor heaters for his clients, and she loved it. So he shared what he did. So it sounds like he said it to her in person, but he could have put that on Facebook, right? So what this is, it's humanizing who this person is. So if you're struggling for what do I do, how do I write, the process of how you run your business, if you use that to connect to people and why you're running your business and who you are as a person, I want to make my customers feel safer and comfortable. So I'm going to drive all the way to Philly to get heaters for my customers. How could people not like that? And so as you can see, this person was inspired to share and encourage people to support this restaurant. So that is the secret sauce for you. Get your story together, become a real human being. Don't be afraid to share things that go beyond, I sell empanadas, I make widgets, I do digital strategy. You have to go beyond that to connect with people, and they'll connect back with you and they'll share. Okay, so let's keep going. So very quickly, because I don't want to run out of time, we're going to go through these other examples. So remember we talked about Tom's, the shoe store. So look at just take a look at these posts for a second, and you can see how these what the company values are super clear in their Facebook, and they have Instagram and Twitter and stuff. So you can see how they incorporate those into just about every post they write. That doesn't mean you have to. Like, I don't know, if I make pencils, it's probably weird if every single day I'm writing about how like pencils are saving the world, but maybe I care about the environment and the climate, and I make sure that my wood is sourced in a way that is sustainable and doesn't harm forests. So instead of saying, here's this amazing pencil that I'm releasing today, I can talk about the origin of the pencil and where it was sourced. And I can talk about how preserving our forests is important to me or important to my company. And that's kind of what Tom's does. And that's what you can do as well. So I'm going to pick on Chelsea a little bit, but she can talk about how those values of children and raising children and giving them access to healthy food is a part of what she does. So when she's talking about like what she serves, she can always or frequently inject those things as well. And you know, okay, so use your values and your story and what you believe in as a compass to help you decide what to share online, and you won't go wrong. So in our next workshop, don't worry, we'll talk a little bit more about how do we get to these Facebook posts. And that's it. Questions?
Well, thank you so much, Carla. This was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed this presentation. And it's really weird that you and I both wear Warby Parkers and we're both kind of Tom shoe fanatics. I just noticed that now. But thank you. One of the questions Mary had asked earlier, and I thought it was a good time to get to it now, was when your business carries your name, Mary Jennings Art, how do I scale beyond myself is her question.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that? When your business what?
When your business carries your name, in her case, it's Mary Jennings Art, how do I scale beyond myself? And I know a lot of kind of founders that are self-named that can run into the situation a little bit. And I didn't know if you had any thoughts on that.
I mean, I think I'd have to really answer that. I'd have to know the why. Because it depends on what you're trying to achieve, right? If you're trying to scale beyond yourself because you've reached kind of the limits of who you are, your audience, or you're sort of too strongly branded, right, to a narrower universe, if you will. Yeah, so I'd like to give an answer, but I think I'd like to know the more about the problem that she was trying to solve, and then that would drive the how. But she can, Mary, you can reach out to me if you want. If you go to the next slide, I think my my email or on questions or whatever. Oh, there we go. Yeah, so you guys can. I'll be happy to hop on the phone or whatever. Or if Mary, if her audio is working, she can jump in and answer a little bit more.
She was also wanting to recommend or asking recommendations for books on this type of topic, and if you had any thoughts or recommendations for those.
I can post them later. I have not read any books on this topic. There are many. I have read a lot of really good articles and blog posts, and actually I can put together maybe about 5 of my favorites. Or maybe you could email them to participants, I guess, as a follow-up, or I can post them on our website. I'll have to figure out how, but there are a bunch that have really helped me understand the power of what I would call, like, it's essentially storytelling, but like authentic storytelling. And boy, I would almost urge you not to Google how do I improve my brand, because it is so overwhelming and you get so much conflicting advice. But I do think hopefully the value of this to you guys is the thread that holds it together during COVID. So maybe I would have said other stuff like pre-pandemic, but right now as a small business owner, I think just about anything that you read out there is going to say you have to stand out. And you have to stand out in a way that makes people trust you, because there's all these people, and maybe they do the same thing that you do, but they don't have your story, right? You are unique. We are, number one. And a lot of those people are not talking about why what they do matters to other people's lives. They aren't. They're just saying what they do and why it's good, or why it tastes good, or why it's this, or why it's cheaper, or why it's bigger. So I think the impact of what you do on a person's life, depending on what it is that you do, right? Convenience, knowledge, happiness, relaxation, and who you are, connecting those two things makes me go, oh, this is why I should trust you. This is why I should care. This is why I'll visit you. This is why I'll give you a chance. And if I'm already connected to you, it's the thing that helps me tell your story accurately. So back to what people say after you've left the room, whatever it is I say, when you find out about that later, you're like, oh yeah, that's me, right?
Yeah.
So you want them to tell the right story, have the right experience.
And I think it helps cut through the noise too, and just in general, like having that clear brand and connecting to your story. There's just so much noise right now, and it's been going on for a long time, but it just seems like more intense. And so, that seems like more of a better way to cut through that kind of clutter, so to say, the static.
And it's achievable, right? So not every small business, like I said earlier, has all this money to run targeted digital ad campaigns, but we all kind of have a reason why we do what we do, and we can share it, and we're small enough that we can be really connected to our customers in a way sometimes that bigger companies can't. And so that's a thing we can all do, and it does, I think it works pretty well.
Yeah, for sure. Well, folks, thank you for joining us today. Let me just change screens a little bit real quick for you. But yes, we hope you enjoyed today's program. Thank you, Carla, for speaking on this topic. It was marketing is, I think, one of our favorite topics at BizLaunch. So we love talking about, we can talk about marketing all day long.
Yeah. And
But,
I think,
Me too, apparently.
Alex, I also wanted to just jump in that I just thought the information is so amazing for us to get, because with branding, many times our business owners are so humble that they don't want to brag about themselves or to express themselves in this way. But I think in light of the health pandemic and everything that we're in, personal is best, and having that authenticity shine through, people want to be a part of that. So I thank you, and that just I just wanted to jump in and interject, because I think that's so important.
No, absolutely, I agree, and especially authenticity is something rare.
Yes,
makes you stand out anymore.
Well, especially
Yes.
now. No, we need it. It's like we are faced with so much, so many threats to our livelihood, our health, our families. It doesn't matter, we don't have time for anything that isn't real, trustworthy, authentic, and is trying to do some amount of good in the lives of customers. And I think any small business can make that connection. You just have to be explicit about it. Yeah. And people will, I think they'll respond accordingly.
Yeah, for sure. So for our next session, Carla returns. So we're looking forward to it. In this, we're talking about kind of building on the lessons learned in previous and transforming your brand into a successful digital strategy and coming up with that. Anybody can do it, and this is we're hopefully that you join us next week. So feel free to register. Thank you for joining us today. We really appreciate having you. Thank you to Carla. We love the interactivity, so thank you for speaking up and sharing your story. I think that hearing other people's challenges and stories is what we kind of missed at BizLaunch, so we really enjoyed that part. So thank you.
I guess same time, same place, same characters.
Same time.
Thank you.
All right, you guys. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
See ya.
Blah, blah, blah.